think they're an abomination. I mean, I can't think of a single good reason why we should have gender-neutral toilets, and don't you love
Inclusivity.
You know,
There's a reason.
No, inclusivity is not a good enough reason because it's not inclusive of women. You know, the thing is, companies and theatres and schools, they're being bullied now by, you know, a small group of activists who are saying it's inclusive. But, you know, what about women? What about safe spaces for women? What about what they think about it? You know, there's been an uproar in London theatres and probably everywhere else in the country too about women having to squeeze past guys using the urinal to get into the cubicles. I mean, that's just not right. And apart from anything else, I'm sorry, but, you know, there's the question of hygiene, apart from women's rights. There's the question of hygiene. Men's toilets are not good. I mean, I would go as far as to say...
Have you been in, Carol?
I've been in quite a few, actually. Gender-neutral ones I've been in. They're peeing on the seats, they pee on the floor, they don't look behind them when they go out. It's just... I do think, you know, there was a story about schools in Scotland. The Times ran the story recently, and it was saying that lots of schoolgirls in Scotland won't use the gender-neutral toilets because the boys are throwing their sanitary products around the toilet and they're peeing in the sanitary bins. That's what's happening in schools. So, you know, why, when there's all these objections, the National Trust is objecting, people going to theatres are objecting, who are we catering for? This tiny percentage of trans and non-binary people. So if they have a problem, let's give them a toilet they can use, but for the rest of us, let us keep them separate.
Carol might have a point here, Benjamin, that actually maybe older women and particularly younger women, so those in the extremes, might feel more comfortable. Actually, maybe all women might feel more comfortable just with their own gender-specific toilet.
I mean, look, I wouldn't have gender-neutral toilets in schools. I think that's a slightly different situation, to be fair. But look, you know, we've had disabled loos for a long time, and people have no problem with that.
No.
Lots of people who don't have a physical disability go into those, even when they don't need to, and they're gender neutral, and no one ever kicked up a fuss about that.
Disabled loos are entirely different.
Hang on, yeah, just say. Well, they're not, because they are gender neutral.
They are, because they have space for wheelchairs. They're big for people in wheelchairs and people who can't.
Yeah, but a man goes in, then a woman follows them in, you know, as the next customer.
Don't care about that.
But that is a gender-neutral toilet, and strangely, no one gets wound up about that.
So they're not in it together.
You don't attach it. You're not. I mean, you're not. I hope you're not in a cubicle with a random
but
man.
I don't want to have to walk past a bloke using the urinals to get to my cubicle.
But that's not what we're talking about, because I don't think you should have urinals and cubicles next to each other for both men and women.
But they do.
Because I never use a urinal. I don't like being around them. I think they're a bit gross. I would only go in a cubicle as a man, and, you know, that's also the case for women. And so what we're talking about here is cubicles which people use, and that they can be both men and women in those cubicles in a shared wider room. And the idea that is an abomination.
It is an abomination.
We've got all the problems going on.
If you went
and also,
to see...
just to point out, they didn't do it as you attempted to claim. They didn't do it for some transgender lobby, whatever that is.
Yeah,
it must be just past the bisexual kitchen.
They
did it because they were having building works, and it was a practical thing to do.
That's in this particular case. I'm talking about the wider...
We're talking about this case.
Well, but can we not broaden the debate? Is that too much for you to take on?
Well,
Let's
just
broaden
point
the
out
debate.
that in all these cases, just like the theatres you've mentioned and the ones that have been reported in the papers, and this house for the National Trust, the car park, which must be a place where most people use the loo, has men's and women's separate toilets as well as disabled.
So if you were going well, I'm going to tell you, if you were going to see the Playhouse in Covent Garden, right, where you have to walk past urinals to get into the women's cubicles, what would you do? Would you just, you know?
I don't think you should have urinals. I think you should just have
They do though, Benjamin.
Well, then we found a level of agreement.
And this is in the Shaftesbury Theatre. There was a sign up there that said, "Please use the toilet that best fits your gender ID or expression." No, don't use the toilet that best fits.
But what is the problem with having cubicles where people use them? When you go on a plane, you will use a gender-neutral toilet. It's the only option in many cases for flights.
Entirely different. It's a tiny box.
How is it different?
Listen, it's not just about the size of the toilet and using the toilet. It's about the space in the toilet. So if you have an elderly person or a young girl or a young woman going into the gender-neutral toilet, and there's 4 drunk blokes there, how comfortable are those people going to feel in that toilet?
But, I mean, you're in a cubicle.
No. You have to walk into the toilet to go into your cubicle.
And what if there are 4 drunk women?
Oh, don't be stupid.
No, but the kind of referencing the extremes, I just think is odd. I mean, I don't routinely find drunk people in toilets at all. Frankly, I don't know which toilets you use.
People don't get drunk in the toilets that you use, do they not?
I do not go to places where people are routinely drunk in the toilets.
So all the nightclubs, all the bars you go to.
Can I enter into something that might be a bit of a compromise? What if we have male toilets, female toilets, disabled toilets, which are already compulsory, and then we have one gender-neutral toilet?
I think that's the solution.
Would that be a solution?
But I just think it's bizarre because by definition, that's basically what you get when you have cubicles. But I just think this is I just think this is the strangest things to get angry about, because frankly there have been gender neutral toilets in your home and planes and disabled toilets.
You're not going to
for
get
as long
attacked in
as
your
time.
home by your spouse.
Well, most women do actually. They get attacked by people that they know if they're going to be attacked.
But,
so maybe not in the toilet.
In a normal household, you're not gonna have a row about the toilet. I just think, if you're a teenage girl and you're going into a gender neutral toilet, there's a whole lot of blokes in there, and you want to change your tampon. If you're a young woman, you
would in a cubicle.
But I still
But you
think
can use the women's loo.
You do understand the embarrassment that young girls might feel about that. Do you understand the embarrassment that young girls would feel about walking into a toilet with 3 or 4 blokes, even if they weren't drunk? Especially if it was nighttime.
But here's a question then.
Around.
So if we have male toilets and female toilets, and we have a male that's wanting to do a female harm going into the female toilets. A young woman walks in. She's completely on her own, if not with just other women, which leaves them slightly vulnerable. If it was a unisex toilet, a male that wanted to do wrong would then have to deal with other men in the toilet. So there's a kind of safety element there, because not all men are predators, we need to remember. I
know that, and I'm not demonising all men. I'm just, what I'm talking about is protecting and respecting the rights of women. And I would bet the majority of women outside in the public domain would want separate toilets.
Well,
there are
find
separate
out.
toilets. In all these cases, especially this one,
No.
there is a separate women's toilet and a separate men's toilet.
No, there's a cubicle.
And you get cases...
No, there's a cubicle.
No, there's a separate men and women's toilets available aside from the gender neutral.
Let's find out what our viewers have to think about.